No matter how perfect these videos are in being able to speak directly to a certain demographic without completely turning off some other demographic, because I'm trying to speak to the whole world transparently, no matter how perfect, every so often I occasionally succeed in making a video, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter until the world entire sees these videos. Now let me tell you that there are some of you who are watching right now who can definitely make that happen. There are people who have the resources, you may be one of them, who are able to make me a public name, to put me into the conversation, to have me booked on shows that are watched within 3 days or less. There are some of you who have that power. The world right now runs primarily on money and a little bit on connections. Some of you have that. Those of you who feel you don't have it, you probably have it a lot more than you think you do. These videos feel, on the one hand, like I'm doing the right thing because every time I try to be practical, to try to reach out to individuals and speak, it doesn't go. Over here, I can speak the truth as I see it to any particular individual demographic in the hope that they will understand me and in the hope that I will at least be given enough credibility and enough benefit of the doubt by people whose language is different from the language that I'm currently utilizing. To expand that, my most recent video is to atheists, where I point out that my language is mostly religious language because this is where I come from. And because I think that there are things within ancient religion, there are important goals within ancient religion, there are important basic truths within ancient religion that aren't spoken of by the primary ideologies of the day. But at the same time, calling to all people who call themselves atheists, I want you to know that the distinction between me and you is only one of language. I'm quite confident that with any particular individual who calls him or herself an atheist, if we were to speak privately one-on-one, or even not privately one-on-one, we can speak on this channel, we would end up coming to common conclusions. We would understand each other's language. Thanks in large part to Rabbi Noach Weinberg, I understand the language of the different communities and how to communicate between them. It may seem that religious people are saying the exact opposite of what atheists are, but usually they are not. Usually it's a person's individual background and how they relate to a certain word or a certain concept or a certain idea or way of life that makes them grant certain definitions to terms, religious, biblical, etc., relating to God, that could be positive or negative. But that ultimately, if we get past those terms and we try to define them clearly, we come to a common understanding. So, as I said in the previous video, if you are in any way an atheist or otherwise against what you regard as the Bible or God or the Jewish way of understanding, this is for you as well. In fact, it might even be more for you than for anybody else. My Rebbe, Rabbi Noach Weinberg, originally began his yeshivos, that's his Jewish schools. He originally began his Jewish schools for people who had grown up Orthodox Jewish. However, he understood after a while, after many failed attempts, that they had already had assigned certain understandings to these words, to these biblical and Jewish understandings that he could not erase. And therefore, he went out and spoke to people who were the farthest away from that understanding, so that they could actually hear him, they could actually consider what he had to say. I'm speaking to all communities, but at the same time, please, you need to each recognize that at times, something I say may sound offensive or wrong, but to some other community it sounds right. Words do not have universal definitions. No word has a universal definition understood by all people. So please grant me that benefit of the doubt. I speak to everybody right now. And again, the first thing that I have to say is that no matter how much you wish that I might succeed, I don't know how it can happen. And therefore, I feel like I am doing my best. Please consider doing your best. We need to get out before the world in one fell swoop. This isn't an internet channel that's designed to get money. I get 0 pennies from YouTube. Absolutely nothing. The money that I get is either from people who donate through PayPal, Patreon, other possibilities you can ask me about, although I'll put my PayPal and Patreon in the description, and through people who join as a member on Substack, where I give a lot more information than I give in this video, or in all my videos. Otherwise, I'm not doing this for any kind of personal benefit. I am trying to reveal what I understand to the world, and I'm asking you, despite my shortcomings, despite whatever about me might seem off-putting, despite whatever might seem dubious, if you can consider honestly and sincerely and get past it, and therefore help me to get into the public conversation immediately. And I say immediately because I don't have to make predictions about nuclear wars. Just look at the situation next door. I'm now in Egypt. Look at the situation in Israel and Gaza, the horribleness that is going on there, that the official people in charge have no solution for, and which all of the people are only trying to work within that official system. And therefore there is no solution for that other than the solution that I am offering. And therefore I am asking you to do your best to look past my human foibles, my human errors, and to help me get into the conversation. I will not shut your voice up. I'm interested in I don't have all the answers. I'm not claiming to be a Messiah, and I was going to say I'm not claiming to be a prophet, And that's only half true, because it depends upon what people mean by the word prophet. But for anyone for whom it means something magical or unlikely, I'm not claiming to be a prophet. For those who understand me correctly, I am indeed claiming to be a prophet. But regardless of any of that, I am just one person. I am just one person. Any 3 or 4 average people have more understanding than I do. I need to wake you up. I want your voices. I need your voices. I need your help. I need your corrections, ideally in private. But if need be, you have every public opportunity to correct me, to call me out. Yehoah sefas tiftach ufi yagid, what you want me to yagid. It's easiest for me to speak the words of the ancients instead of speaking my own words, because I'm doing something very different than everybody else who has tried to, quote unquote, take over the world. I've already explained the minor degree to which I'm trying to take over the world. I'm trying to get into the public conversation and to give you the opportunity as to whether I should be the predominant moderator of humanity. Not moderator as in censor, but moderator as in who publicly has conversations with all people, and hopefully through all of this, publicly again, whoever wants to have a public video conversation is welcome. Through this comes to the best conclusions. That's what I'm offering. And unlike everyone else who's gone for it, I am making the grand distinction of not claiming to be perfect, of not claiming to be divine, of not claiming to have all the answers. I know this is not the perfect way. I do not blame the Lubavitcher Rebbe, for example, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson. I only exist because my parents believed that he spoke the exact words of God, and therefore they created me. I would not exist otherwise if they did not believe in him as an absolute. I have a very strong feeling that perhaps I'm supposed to try to do that, to let people believe in the miracles, to let people believe that I'm more than just a man. I believe that it's a fault of mine, possibly, that I don't let people do that. But as of now, I'm sorry, I'm unable to. I'm just a small person, and I take criticism seriously, and if somebody were to call me out on, hey, people think that you have all the answers and that you have miraculous powers, and I think not, I would admit to them what I think. I'm just trying my best. But I do believe that at this time, I am the best hope for mankind. It's hard to say, but maybe it'll be easier to say if I say openly and proudly and with joy and with hope that if I am not only open to changing my mind, but I would like to change my mind. I would like to instead nominate somebody else. I would like for someone greater than myself, with greater abilities and greater understandings than myself, to actually be that person. I'm looking for that person my whole life. I'm only coming out publicly because I was told... Again, atheists, please understand. We would understand each other if we spoke. Please give me the benefit of the doubt is all I ask. I was told that at this time there is nobody else, and therefore it's up to me. I hope that through my efforts, somebody much better will come along, and I can step out of the limelight. Not that I'm in the limelight now. I'm saying get me in the limelight, but I promise you, once I'm in the limelight, if somebody more proper for this job comes along, I will eagerly resign. As a matter of fact, in some theoretical crazy world that I can't even imagine, but you can, and you can make possible, where I actually end up taking the powers from all the current powers of the earth, and I'm the ultimate ruler of humanity. The goal is to become a regular person, to resign those powers, slowly but surely, until I am just a regular person. I don't want to be in the limelight. This is just something which appears to be necessary, in the same way as money at this point appears to be necessary, and that's why I'm asking for money. It's not something that I want. Judaism is very hard to understand. There are very few people throughout history who have understood Judaism, and those who have had a heck of a difficult time explaining it to other people, Jews or non-Jews. One of really the only person who understood Judaism, who was actually able to put his works into writing, and who was considered in his day and thereafter the greatest Jew since Moses, nonetheless had his own people burn his books for hundreds of years. His name was Moshe ben Maimon. In Arabic, Abu Imran ibn Abdullah, Abu Imran Musa ibn Maimun ibn Abdullah, in English and other languages, Maimonides. He has had people burn his books as heretical, despite the fact that he was considered by the majority of Jews the one who explained Judaism to us all, second only to Moses. He did not shy away from claiming that he was second only to Moses when he referred to his book as the Mishnah Torah. I can't go into the Hebrew right now and explaining where Moses uses that term, etc. Suffice it to say, he told the truth. He told the truth, he was highly respected, and his books were burnt for his efforts. It's very hard to explain Judaism. There appear to be many contradictions, and any one of them taken on its own is easily to take people far, far astray. I will therefore at this point give you from Judaism and from the Enlightenment philosophers an understanding of the edges of how Judaism describes the importance of you. The importance of you who's actually watching this right now. On the one hand, the Bible describes all of humankind from just a single individual. The Bible says that God made Adam, one individual, bidmusai uvetzalmai, in his likeness, in his image. One person. Parenthetically, regardless of your views on the subject, if you believe that is saying that there were no hominids, there were no people who looked like us, were more or less like us, more than 6,000 years ago, then you are misunderstanding both the truth and the Bible, which is the truth. You are clearly misunderstanding the Bible, and it is wrong. The Bible is not making that claim. Clearly so. If I need to explain it, I can explain it, but I don't want to, because here I'm not playing the role of some Bible expert. I'm unfortunately pushed into the role of attempting to be the person taking responsibility for planet Earth on God's behalf. Something I don't really enjoy because I have not really been very successful at it. If you help me and I'm more successful, I assume I'll enjoy it more. So far, it's not a lot of fun, but I'm not engaging in theology. I'm not here for that kind of... Masturbation is a kind word to use for it. To use for discussing these minor theological points. That's a sweet word to use for it. That's not what we're here for. God created one person, the Talmud says, so that each person should be able to say, the entire world is mine. God made the whole world for me. In other words, you watching this here are God, the only God. This does not mean that you created yourself. This does not mean that you are the ultimate truth, etc., etc. Lowercase g, God of earth. God of your own life and of all that you can encounter. I don't play video games. I think the term is NPC, but I'm not sure. But everyone else is simply a player in the game, and you are all that matters. As a matter of fact, I believe it was Rabbi Yishmael who said, when I see 600,000, which is a way of saying everybody, so to speak, on the Temple Mount, in other words, worshiping God, I make the blessing, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, shebara kol elu lishamsheni. Blessed are you, Yehovah, our God, the King of all the worlds, who created all these people to serve me. You, from your perspective, deep down, you know you are God and nobody else actually matters. You know that when you die, nothing exists beyond. I'm not saying afterlife, right? I'm not talking about that. But on earth, nothing exists of you. You know, you have no knowledge of that. That's it. The world dies with you. We are each the only child of God. Now I'm going to jump a few thousand years forward and speak about the idea of the social contract. The social contract is, suppose there's 4 people here, me, Sam, Jack, and John, and we're all atheists of the ideal understanding of the term. We all believe, therefore, that the world is ours, and what are these other fellas doing here? But we realize that it's best for us, for our own safety, to make a social contract. So me, Jack, Jeff, and John, I don't care the names, we decide, well, if any one person kills another person, the other 2 will gang up and kill him. Very simple. You don't need God for any of that. There's 4 of us, or 5 of us, whatever it is, and we set this certain rule, and this lets us each sleep peacefully. This lets us each sleep peacefully with our wives and our children and our possessions, because unless, of course, there's a great distinction in our possessions, in which case things get messed up, which is how it is today. But that's for a later concept. But the 5 of us sharing this world logically decide to make this decision. It's rational. You don't need any kind of God for it. Uvacharta b'chayim, choose life. Moses has God tell the Jewish people, or God has Moses tell the Jewish people. Life. The great distinction between the Jewish understanding and the understanding of some other faiths is that life is not meant to be suffering. Life is not meant to be something to be escaped. Life is meant to be relished. Rabbi Noach Weinberg would use the word pleasure, precisely because the word pleasure sounds so self-indulgent. It sounds so sensual. He would therefore purposefully use the word pleasure, saying every day, God made the world for your pleasure. God made the world for your pleasure. And therefore, myself, Jack, John, and James, and Bethany, at the end of the day, we don't really need a social contract if we recognize the pleasure of working with each other, if we recognize Olam Chesed Yiboneh, a world of kindness is what God built. Unlike the video games, where it's based on competition, unlike the world today, where it's based on competition, where literally in presidential debates, they each talk about we need to be competitive against China. We need to be competitive against other countries. What the hell are they talking about? Well, they don't say this out loud, but it's that they believe we need to each, let's say in America, of which I am the only country I'm a citizen, we need to be competitive against each other. They believe greed is good. They really do. The truth of the Bible is that if you believe the entire world is yours alone, the greatest pleasure that you can have is ohev es habrios umakarvan l'Torah. The greatest pleasure you can have is to love all the other players. You know that from their perspective they are God, but that truthfully, absolutely truthfully, from your perspective, they don't matter at all. If they were never born, it wouldn't affect your life at all. If they died and you never heard of them, it wouldn't affect your life at all. Nonetheless, loving them, enjoying them, getting pleasure from their happiness, and bringing them closer to an understanding of how to live in accordance with God's desires for all of us, which are our deepest desires, that's how you can get the most out of life. Sigmund Freud, an interesting character, a tremendous genius who was regarded in his own day as one of the greatest geniuses of the day, who quickly became an avodah zarah, who quickly became an object of idolatry. So much so that today it's easy to point out how he was wrong in 1,000 different ways, and therefore he's been tossed by the wayside. That's the problem with avodah zarah. That's the problem with making anyone or anything into an actual idol. At the end of the day, your understanding of God is ultimately within you. But he was a great man, a brilliant man, and he came up with this concept of the id, ego, and superego. The ego, or the ich, the I, is the part of you that ends up making the decisions. You know that, of course, we all contain multitudes. We all have different drives in different directions that contradict each other. He said, let's try to simplify it for a moment. The id is that which is actually you, that which you are born with, that which is your genetics, that which is the true you. The superego, and of course none of this translates from the German to the English really great at all, but the superego is that which comes from the outside. All the things you were told are you that aren't actually you, but which do help you to not actually get killed really, really quickly if you just follow your plain old id. And the ich, translated as ego, that's the you that has the balance between them. The superego. I'd be doing you a favor to let you know that you should get rid of all your superego impulses, all the things you were told by mommy and by school teacher and by newspaper and by presidential nominees. But not really, because you know what? You'd fall back on thinking, okay, so who's the real me? Who's the real id? I know there are things I want to do sometimes that I can't do. I want to have sex with some chick and I can't quite do it because, well, you know, she doesn't want to. And that can cause me problems if I go ahead. Well, I guess that's the real me and that's what I should do. No. You've been raised in Plato's cave, my friend. You have been raised, all of us have been raised in an insane world with insane values. And if we simply remove one of them, and therefore presume the rest is who we are really, really, really confused. And we come up with very, very wrong conclusions. Fortunately, even though Jews have often misunderstood the points of the Torah, God has continued to send us prophets. And therefore, we have the prophet Isaiah. The prophet Isaiah in chapter 58. It's not even actually Isaiah. It's somebody from the school of Isaiah whose name we do not know, an anonymous prophet, accepted into the Bible of everybody who accepts the Bible. Isaiah chapter 58 provides us with a synthesis between this absolute truth that only you matter, that you are all that matters, and the superego that has been imposed upon you from the world that has tried to make you as small as possible. That superego imposed upon the world does not affect those people who are immune to it, and therefore they end up ruling the world. You can see the very first 2 videos on this channel where I was the only non-reporter attending Ghislaine Maxwell's trial. The Jeffrey Epstein, Lolita Farm, or whatever it is, Ghislaine Maxwell, I was the only non-reporter there. You can see the very first 2 videos there. Those people, they're immune to all superego. They regard themselves as gods on earth. And as you'll also be able to see from those videos, I don't regard them as people we necessarily need to put up against the wall and shoot. Because at the end of the day, how many of us can say that if we were invited to the top floor, if we were invited to be one of the 10,000 people who rule over 8 billion, that we would not take it? The synthesis is this, from Isaiah chapter 58. Unfortunately, the phone I'm speaking to you through right now is itself broken in many ways, and my other phone is not even showing most of the screen, as you can see. So if you happen not to have the ability to put me in the conversation monetarily, because that's how the world works these days, if you don't have the ability monetarily or through connections to put me into the conversation, you could still contribute to keeping me around for a while, giving me a chance. Right now I'm about to be evicted from my place in Egypt because I have no money. You can keep me around here. You can keep me around with a few extra $1,000 to keep me from, having a phone that works, at least one of the two, basic health issues, place to stay, etc. If that's what you believe to be right, then please do so. Again, you'll have the ability and the links available to PayPal and Patreon, as well as to joining on Substack within the description. Isaiah chapter 58 is regarded as one of the most important chapters in the Bible, and therefore it's what every Jewish synagogue reads on Yom Kippur, the highest of high holy days. And yet, only 1 in 100 or 1 in 1,000 of your Jews who go to synagogue on Yom Kippur could tell you what was read on that day. Unfortunately, we are very, very fallen. I'll have to do my best without this extra phone. I'll have to do my best at recounting it by heart. If I make some mistakes, I apologize. You can look it up on your own, Isaiah 58. The sum conclusion of it is that, yes, you're all that there is. But you know what? God is the father of everybody. God's only son or only daughter is not just you, but everybody else. And he made the world in such a way that by cooperating, by loving each other, we can have a better world for ourselves, a better life for ourselves. Even if you are all that matters, the best way to have a better life for yourself is if we are all following this. Unfortunately, what Isaiah does not deal with there is the fact that if only one person does it, it doesn't work. Isaiah speaks to the majority. Isaiah speaks to the people. If only you become a saint, as I mentioned 2 videos ago, I have tried for a number of years. I truly was that absolutely perfect saint. It doesn't work. It's very pleasurable. It's a very happy life to be that kind of person. But at the end of the day, you'll die of suffering. We need to change society. We need to enlighten society, not to force anybody into anything, simply to enlighten them and let's hear their objections, rational or irrational. Let's hear them out. Let's consider them. Here's Isaiah chapter 58. It's God speaking directly to Isaiah. And again, if I mess up in any way, it's because I'm poor, something that you can help alleviate, and I therefore don't actually have the working phone to be able to read it directly. God tells Isaiah, Kra vigaron, literally translated as screech. Kra means call, vigaron means from your throat. Kra vigaron al tachsoch means hold nothing back. Screech at the top of your lungs. That's what he's telling Isaiah. Prophets have often suffered for their prophecies. It is good to be close to God, to know the truth, to say the truth, to do what's right. It is good. But you know what? With a fallen world, it's hard to say that it's worthwhile. There are those that say that Isaiah himself was murdered by his own king, Menashe. It's part of the tradition. We don't have it in the Bible. But at the end of the day, we can see very clearly that prophets were not treated very well. That's something we really need to fix. Kra vigaron, call out from your throat. Al tachsoch, hold nothing back. In other words, screech at the top of your fucking lungs. Kashofar, like a horn, like a shofar that people blow on Rosh Hashanah. A horn. Hareim kolecha, raise your voice. Be loud. V'haged la'ami pish'am, and tell my nation their mistake. They're more than mistake. It's la'ami. In other words, those that are close to understanding God, show them for them it's worse than just a mistake. It's almost what we call a sin. Because they should know better. V'haged la'ami pisham, uleves Yaakov, and to the house of Jacob, because Isaiah is speaking to the Jewish people. Uleves Yaakov, and to the house of Jacob, chatosam, their error. And then God just says sarcastically, something which is unbelievable to find in the Bible. God says, V'osi, and me, yom yidrashun, they seek me every day. God's being sarcastic. He's saying they think they're seeking me every day. They claim they're seeking me every day. V'das drochai yechpatsun, and knowledge of my ways is all they desire. They pray, they shuckle, this is called shuckling. They pray, they shuckle, they squint their eyes, they fast, they just want to understand God's ways and be in tune with the truth. As Zechariah puts it, the best that we can understand God, because God is beyond comprehension, but as humans, perhaps the best we can understand God is ha'emes v'hashalom, the truth and the good. Period. The truth and the good that is true, and the truth that is good. Uvacharta v'chayim, choose life. That's God. So yoim yidrashun. V'das drachai yechpatsun, v'oisi, and I, yoim yidrashun. Every day they seek me. V'das drachai, and my knowledge of my ways, yechpatsun. They think that they really desire to know. They act, kigoy, like a nation, asher tztaka asa, that has always done righteousness. Umishpat alehav, and the judgments of its God. Loy azav, they have not abandoned. Yishaluni mishpatei tzedek, They ask me, give us righteous judgments, as if I didn't already give them a whole Bible and prophets. They ask me righteous judgments. Yishaluni mishpatei tzedek. Kirvas elehim yechbatsun. They just want to feel close to God. This is directed at everyone, at all of us, at me, at you. It's calling us all hypocrites and fakes. Das drachai yechbatsun ki goyesh et staka aso mishpat alehav lo yazav yishaluni mishpatei tzedek kirvas elehim yechbatsun. They just want to feel close to God, and they turn to God and they say, or rather we turn to God and we say, Lama tzamnu. Why it is that we have fasted velora isa and you haven't seen. Eininu nafshenu. We have pained our animal selves velo seda, and you haven't known. You haven't taken any notice of it. See, in the 5 books of Moses, what Jews call the Torah, because in the Jewish Bible, what Christians call the Old Testament, there are 3 parts: the Torah, the Nevi'im, and the Ksuvim. Torah is the 5 books of Moses, which do not claim to be written by Moses. That needs to be very clear. Moses is a character who is quoted in the Bible. Exactly how it came to us we can't get too set aside. But that's the Torah. Nevi'im is the prophets, which ends with Malachi. And then we have Ksuvims, the writings. In the 5 books of Moses, it says that on Yom Kippur, on the highest of high holy days, and which is the Day of Atonement, and on other fast days, Ininu es nafshosechem, you should pain your nefesh. In other words, don't give in to simple pleasures. In other words, right here I have Coca-Cola in an inappropriately large bottle, and it's a pleasure to drink Coca-Cola. It's nice. It's got sugar. It's got bubbles. During a fast day, you abstain from Coca-Cola. You abstain from much else. You abstain from eating and drinking. You abstain from all of the things that would please your nefesh, your bodily person, from all distractions. That's the point. You should be refraining from all distractions. And the Jews say, hey, we did that. Lama tzamnu, why have we fasted? Velo ra'isa, and you haven't seen, and therefore not helped us. Eininu nafshena, we have pained our nefesh, our animal soul, by not engaging in, as I mentioned in two videos ago, the one that has over 350 views, where I didn't sleep on a mattress for a very, very long time. I didn't want to get distracted from trying to do God's will. I'm not commenting on that person that I was. I think he was doing the right thing as best he could. But nonetheless, that's what Eininu nafshenu is getting rid of all distractions so you can be focused on holiness. Eininu nafshenu velo seida, and God responds, hein, yeah, right. B'yom tzomchem timtzu chayfetz. Even on your fast days, you were still seeking out what you wanted. Even on your fast days, you weren't. And here we can look towards the East. In the East, for a very, 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 very long time in the East, from the non-biblical world, they had strata of humanity. Most famously in India, the caste system, but this is something that was common throughout everywhere the Bible had not yet reached. The caste system, which believes, based on the Code of Manu, that human beings come from different parts of one particular primordial human, and have different value, therefore. They're not equal. They have different value, they come from a different thing. It's built into the system. Well, the Bible's point of view is different, that we are all the same. In fact, Amos, you should know, by the way, that racism against black people has been around for a very, very long time, as long as civilization's been around. Because people evolved in different parts of the world differently, and people who came from Africa, which did not have a civilization for a very long time, evolved without necessarily the average person having great capacities for civilization. And God therefore uses that 2,800 years ago in the book of Amos to say, Jews, you think you're so special because you're the first ones who left civilization, and therefore you're the most capable at making it in civilization? Halo kivnei chushim atem li? You think you're better than Schwarzes? Or literally, you think you matter more to me than Schwarzes? Than black people? It's not how it is. So God says, "Hein biyom tzomchem," even on your fast days, timtzu chayfes, you just wanted your own thing. You weren't following, I guess I mentioned here the Eastern aspect. The Eastern aspect is that for a very, very long time they had stratosphered communities. And therefore they came up with ways to survive. Instead of coming up with ways to thrive, they came up with ways to survive. Confucianism, Taoism, Buddhism, all of them brilliant and all of them beautiful. However, all of them lacking in revolution. The monotheistic religions are all about revolution. The ideal is not to be violently revolution, because in almost every instance you'll do it wrong, but revolution to try to get us to a better place, not just accept how you are, not just find a way to be asleep in meditation so that life isn't so much suffering for a little while. But that sort of meditation is the ultimate goal. That sort of enjoying all of life as it is the ultimate goal once we have the equality of man. In addition, during our fast days, during our holy days, when we aren't supposed to be focused on ourselves, we're supposed to be open to what is the Spirit telling us, something which also in the East they do better than we monotheists necessarily do. So, I'm not listening to you because even on your fast days, yeah, sure, you're not eating, you're not drinking, blah, 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 but you're still looking out for your own good. And you're still rude, you're still pressuring those that are beneath you. In other words, what's coming out of your fast days? Instead of coming out of your fast days, that you're in a place where you're not focused on anything physical, and therefore you're open to deeper truths, you're taking it out on people. You're feeling bad because you haven't eaten or drunk or had sex or slept on a mattress or whatever else, and you're taking it out on people. God says, Hein, behold, Lariv umatza tatsumu. You're not fasting for Yahuwah. You're fasting for your own God. Riv, which means argument. Matzah, which means fighting. Ulahakos be'egrof resha. And to beat with an evil fist. The word Russia literally means evil. It's the strongest word in the Bible for such a thing. And lahakos be'egrof resha. You're fasting, but you're still concerned with your own concerns. And at the end of the day, you're not making things easier on those that are beneath you, on those that you're capable of taking things out on. God says, Lo satzumu chayom. Chayom means like today. In ancient Hebrew, it was a swear word, as in I swear, or even I effing swear, but I swear. Lo satzumu chayom. Don't fast, I swear. Don't fast like this day. In other words, as clear as it is that it's day, that's as much as serious as I am. Lahashmiya b'marom kolchem, in order to get your voices heard on high. Hachazet tzom chareyu. Do you think this is the kind of fast I want? Yom anos adam nafsho, a day when a person pains his nefesh, because ultimately God wants us to enjoy our nefesh. God wants us to enjoy Coca-Cola. God wants us to enjoy sex. God wants us to enjoy a nice mattress. God wants us to enjoy everything. We got it wrong. We thought God was saying, no, pleasure is bad. No, pleasure is good. But Yom Anos Nafsho, do you think that Achazet Som of Chareu, is this the kind of fast that I want? Yom Anos Adam Nafsho, a day that a person pains his nefesh? Halachov Ka'agmon Rosho, that he bends his head like a reed. V'sak Vo'efer Yatzia, and instead of sleeping on mattresses or wearing nice clothes, he's wearing sackcloth and spreading out ashes everywhere. Halachov Ka'agmon Rosho, V'sak Vo'efer Yatzia, Halazet Tikratzom. Is this what you call tzom? Tzom, a holy fast day, a holy day. Is this what you call tzom? The Yom Ratzon LiYahuwah, and a day that Yahuwah wants? Halozeh tzom chareu. Maybe this is the kind of fast that I want. And then we get an increasing order of difficulty. First order of difficulty, second order of difficulty, third, that's how it goes forth. And this entire chapter points out that ultimately, following this, caring about your fellow gods on earth will make your own life sublime and divine. Halozeh tzom chareu. Pateach chartzubos resha. Unlock the shackles of evil. Again, it's rare that this word evil is utilized. They mean slavery, and they mean today the prison system. If indeed we are of the point of view that in America at any given time, a full 1 in 80 men need to be in prison, otherwise it's bad for the rest of us, then that speaks to the evil of our society. Because this is the first thing God says to get rid of. Locking people up is the first evil. And if we find that in our society, for the sake of our safety, we need to lock up 1 out of 80 men at any given time, this speaks to a society that is so far gone, it's almost beyond redemption. This is the first basic thing that God demands of us. Pateach chartzubos resha. Unlock the evil shackles, the evil bars. Next, hater agudot mota. Loosen the bindings that you have on your employees. Make it a little easier on them. Don't make them carry such heavy. Yes, they made a contract with you. Yes, you're paying them. You should know the Bible is neither communist nor capitalist. The Bible believes in something much more complicated. The essence, the two most important things about it are, first of all, the 50-year Jubilee, and coming up on October 12th, when there's supposed to be a reset for all of humanity, and every 7 years, the sabbatical year, a partial reset for all humanity. All contracts voided, everyone made equal yet again for a fresh start. And the second thing is, even during these 50 years, there are severe limitations. You're not allowed, for example, to compete against somebody else. If the other person is charging a fair price, you're not allowed to move into their territory. There are all kinds of rules that we completely ignore. So to describe the Bible as either capitalistic or communistic completely ignores the Bible as a whole different thing. But the Bible recognizes that, yes, we do need things at this point within the state that we are now. We have contracts and we have laborers, we have people working for others. But hater agudos mota, loosen the difficulties, loosen the binds that someone has to carry. Then more difficult, v'shalach ritzutzim chavshiyim. And all those that are really oppressed, whether by difficult contracts that they were set into or whatever it is, every society has its own way. That's why the Bible doesn't give you a precise example. But those that are truly oppressed, send them completely free. If there's no way, in other words, if they're not actually benefiting, for example, there are exploitative capitalistic, communities, exploitative capitalistic situations within our modern world, that the people are simply not benefiting. There are numerous people. We talk about human trafficking. People think of human trafficking, they often just think of sex, or they think of people who want to get from one country to another. But in many cases, what's happening, and I've met many people who have been victim to this all over the world, is that somebody else takes away their passport, the person who brought them from China to America, people that I have spoken to personally, brought them from China to America, and they take away their passports, and these people are essentially needing to work without any real way out. No. There's no small fix for that. Shalach ritzutzim chafshiyim. Let them go completely free, those that are oppressed. And the final one, v'chol mota t'nateku. Break every bond, every assumption that every person has on everyone else as a demand, every contractual demand, everything that you think you can force upon someone else. Break that bond. Of course, we all want to break the bonds that are imposed upon us. That's why this must be a societal thing. All of us together must agree to break every bond, to be able to sit together, to sing together, to be one soul together. The Bible goes on with the next steps. Hello, is it not? Feros l'ra'av lachmecha. Cut off from your bread for the hungry. V'aniyim rudim tavi bayis. And the downtrodden, homeless people, bring into your home. Feros l'ra'av lachmecha v'aniyim rudim tavi bayis. Kisire arom v'chisiso. When you see a naked person and you cover him, we all tend to flee from naked people. People who seem to really not have their shit together so well that we won't even give them anything at all. We'd rather not have to deal with them whatsoever. That's why this is considered hard. I know from personal experience. I was walking home from the Spanish-Portuguese synagogue in New York where I had spoken, and I came across a guy. It was a cold day. And I came across a guy. I was wearing a suit, and he didn't have any top. He was a homeless guy. So I gave him my shirt. And he presumed that what I wanted was that he would... that I wanted some sexual favor from him. That's an uncomfortable situation. So I explained, I gotta go, it's fine, whatever, just have the shirt, I recognize not everybody can do this. We all have different skills with each other. That's why this needs to be community-wise. Many people would never ever give their shirt to someone who's homeless, not because they don't want to, but because they don't know how to deal with the complications that could ensue. Thank God that's one of my great gifts. I can deal with the complications of crazy people. Other people can't. There are other complications I can't deal with. That's why this needs to be society-wide, a value that is society-wide. Kisira arom chisiso. When you see someone without clothes and you cover them. And you don't hide from the needs of your own flesh and blood. Wow. This is the last one because it's the most difficult. It's definitely the most difficult. Dealing with strangers is easy. Dealing with those who are our own flesh and blood, unfortunately, is often very difficult. Very difficult. Especially parents and children. Parents, unfortunately, our society encourages parents to lie to their children. To tell them that the world is better than it is. To, hide from them the nasty stuff, etc. And to claim essentially omnipotence. Furthermore, having a child is very difficult, and in our world more than otherwise, because in our world, children are actually raised by their schools, by their peers, by their media, by their games, by everything except the parents who are too busy making a living. So in our world, parents go through a really difficult time. Here they're trying to do the very best for their kids, and it's tremendously difficult because the kid doesn't even appreciate or respect them. It's understandable, and the Bible does understand it. This was written 2,500 years ago. The Bible understood it for a long time. About 2,600 years ago, actually. The Bible understood this for a long time, that it is difficult to deal with relatives. That's why this is, even after you've emptied your prisons and after you've gotten rid of your contracts that bind people to things that are uncomfortable for them but which benefit you, etc., etc., still, it doesn't make that big a demand. It doesn't say that you have to do everything for your relatives, but don't disappear. Don't hide your eyes from your relative's suffering. The Bible recognizes the difficulty. As for the importance of it, and I speak for myself and for most of us, if not for you, then God bless you. You are very fortunate. You are a role model. We, the rest of us, should see what you do right and follow you. But for those of us who have difficulty with our flesh and blood sometimes, we should take in mind that, as I mentioned earlier, there are 3 parts to the Jewish Bible. The 5 books of Moses, the prophets and the writings, the final verse of the prophets, Hinei anochi sholech lechem es Eliyah hanavi. Behold, I will send to you Elijah, the prophet, which Maimonides says we don't know if it means literally Elijah coming down from heaven or if it means someone akin to Elijah. Lifnei ba yom Yehovah, before the great day of Yehovah, of absolute truth and goodness, absolute judgment, pure judgment. Hagadol v'hanora, the great and the terrible. In other words, mightier, scarier, greater, better, depending on who you are, than anything that preceded it. V'heshiv lev avos avonim v'levonim al avosam, and he will return the hearts of fathers or parents to their children and the hearts of children to their parents. Pen avo v'hikesi es ha'oretz cherem. God says, this is a paraphrase again because I don't have a working phone, lest I come, it's probably a quote, but if there's something wrong there, I'm just letting you know. Pen avo v'hikesi es ha'oretz cherem. Because if not, I will come and I will whack the earth barren. God promised after the flood, in the book of Genesis, never to again destroy the world. This is the closest God comes to giving an exception to that. We should do our best. It doesn't mean sacrifice. It doesn't mean be an enabler. It's difficult. That's why it's so far down the list. But Isaiah says, if you can do it, kisira oron v'chisiso, if you get to that level where you can give your clothes to someone else who needs it, umipsarcha lo sasalim, and you don't hide from those that are your flesh and blood, oz yibaka kashachar orecha, then your light will break forth like the morning light. Va'aruchascha meheros itzmach, and your healing will begin quickly. V'halach lefanecha tzidkecha, and your righteousness will go before you, your reputation, your own righteousness will precede you. Uchvod Yehovah ya'asfecha, and the very honor of Yehovah, God, will surround you, will follow you. If you get to that level, uz, then tikra, when you call out, Yehovah ya'aneh, God will answer. Tishava, if you call out in pain, vayomer hineni, I will immediately be to say, I'm here, what do you need? And then God goes on to the second if, then, the next stage. We're so far from getting to the next stage that I can do the rest of this quickly. Im tosir mitochecho mota. If you remove from your entire society the entire concept of placing a burden on another person, of having anybody have any burdens. Shlach etzba, any sending forth of the finger, any criticisms. V'daber oven, any bad speech. V'tafek l'ra'ov nafshecha, and you give the hungry not just your bread, but your very soul you share with the hungry. V'nefesh na'ana tazbiya, and the soul of the depressed person you satisfy and make them happy. V'zorach b'choshech orecha, and your light shines forth in the darkness. Va'afeloscha, and even your midnight, katzoharayim, is as bright as noon. V'nochach Yehovah tamid, God will guide you constantly. V'hizbiya b'tzachtzachos nafshecha, and He will satisfy even in the driest places your spirit. V'atzmosecha yachalitz, He will make your bones stronger. V'hayisa kegan roveh, you will be like a well-watered field, asher lo yichazvu memav, whose waters are assured to keep coming forever. Uvanu mimcha charvos olam, and those destroyed things, those good things of the past, will be rebuilt. Umozdei dor vador tekomem, you will create structures, societal understandings that will last for all the generations to come. V'korei lecha, and future generations will call you Goder Peretz, the one who fixed the breach, Mishovev Nesivos Lashaves, who fixed the roads for us to dwell in happiness. Here's the third and final condition, the third if-when, which is even more distant from our understanding. Im toshiv b'Shabbos raglecha, if on the Sabbath you stop your feet from going. Asos chafatzecha b'yom kodshi, doing your own thoughts of what you want on my holy day. V'karosa l'Shabbos oneg, and you call the Shabbos a delight. Likdosh Yahovah mechubad, to the honor of Yahovah the heavy, the all-everythingness. The all-everythingness, you recognize that all is good. V'chibadato, and you honor it. Me'asos drachecha, from making your usual rounds. Mimtzo chafetzecha, from seeking those things you think you want, instead of just basking in the pleasure of all you have. V'daber davar, and speaking a word. Speaking a word clearly refers to speaking a word about the future, plans for the future, or about anything you feel you need, but it might go even further than that. Oz tisaneg al Yehovah, then you will have the purest pleasure of Yehovah-ness. V'harkavticha al b'masei aretz, I will chariot you upon the highest places of earth. V'ha'achalticha nachlas Yaakov avicha, and you will indeed enjoy and consume the blessing given or promised to Jacob your father. Ki pi Yehovah diber, for the mouth of Yehovah has spoken.